if you're gonna have justifications about using it, then don't start with the idea that it's natural, okay? Because anything can be abused to a high effect. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, I don't know, I just mention anything. Let's say, if someone says, you know, eating green leafy vegetables is healthy, that is healthy, right? But let's say that's all that they ate. That wouldn't be a complete diet, so we'd have a problem. You know, and you could put anything in its place.
Right,
So,
right.
and I can say that because I love my green. You know what I mean? That's I OD, so I know this. But so my answer was basically like, don't use natural as a reasoning, and I went into the idea of natural because lots of things are the FDA approves as natural that aren't natural. So that was my reasoning with that, and I gave examples, and I talked about what the thing that we always get rid of first, pork, pig. A lot of that is called natural, depending on how it's used. And I explained also, by the way, as a side note, if you take two natural elements and unnaturally fuse them chemically, the FDA allows you to call that natural. The result of that. A lot of times, the result of that, we would find that, whoa, that is a chemical and that is putrid, and we cannot, you know what I mean? I wouldn't call that, but they have their own guidelines of what they call natural, and people are making up new food elements every day because they can't keep up with all that. The FDA can't keep up. There's books on it. I give the quotes, sugar, salt, fat. There's a whole bunch of them. I could go on and on about them, and the resources and references are in those books. But anyway, that was the point. That was the small point.
I think his issue was like, what do we define as natural?
Right, but nobody in the class asks that.
Right. See.
So
Yeah.
you know, if someone's watching online, if they didn't say anything, and this wasn't an online stream,
Right.
this was after the fact. So how would I know your pre-questions? I'm speaking to the individual that's there, and basically I told them like, don't use it as a crutch. That was my main thing, and I have found people to use it to great effect, and also others to use the very bad effect. So I would consider it though like a lot of other things, you know. And then also I mentioned that, you know, if you smoke something, you are getting smoke in your lungs, no matter what form you were smoking. So you always have to be careful about lung health and chi health. And I haven't trained with or trained any martial artist that was as effective with weed than without. That to me is my experience. You know what I mean? Everybody that I have trained with, and this is about 20 years of experience, so I'm not going to say I have the most experience, but those who have used weed have done better without it than with it. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean many of the martial arts I train with it. My big brothers in martial arts, they smoke weed, and you know they manage it. But anyway, that was all I said, right? And he wanted to get on me with the pork, so
he got really angry with you.
yeah. And the thing, and he said, and it got into a pig is made from the cat, rat, dog thing. And you know, me, I'm being completist, and not really for him. I'm for other people that read it, because I don't care about him anymore. I already know where he was coming from, and I'll tell you where he was coming from. But I mentioned that the only documentation of people saying it was from a cat, rat, dog, pig is from Elijah Muhammad and the teachings that come from Fard, right? And it's not even in 120 lessons. It is not in 120 lessons, no matter what anybody says. It doesn't say that, right? Now, we respect Elijah Muhammad, but we don't believe Elijah Muhammad. That means that everything that he said, because he has a track record of being shown and proven, then what he says we would go to first and then take it under the study as opposed to someone else. That's what a good scientist does. They look at questions of possibilities, and the one that has more of a likelihood, they spend their time with that. Elijah Muhammad continues to be right. The moon, right? Remember, people thought that it wasn't blown away. Now, if you watch any moon documentary, they'll say something happened of some kind of explosion that blew the moon. What became the moon is a piece of the earth that was blown off. This has been said. So he was ahead of the curve. Original man is the black man. That was ahead of the curve. At the time he was teaching, it was a white right. Mediterranean darkened man, right? And all Egyptologists work and archaeology work that was being written by, the Western world. So he's added a curve on that. So again, we could come up with a whole bunch of things. So with that said, I was saying like, if I was to research biologically, I would respect that and try to do that. I'm saying I haven't done it and I haven't encountered it. So I would say that, look, that's something that's said, and I leave it right there. I don't know
What, as far as the cat, rat, and
the pig being composed of a cat, rat, and dog. I said leave it there as a possibility, but I don't know it, and I can't prove it.
All right, so can I ask you this though?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a hybrid animal?
It could be. You know what I mean? But see, people are saying this because they want to say the devilishment of an animal. You know what I'm saying? And this is where like we get into things like the devilishment of a pig is only when you eat it. Just like a man is only wicked if he does something wicked. You know what I'm saying? The white man wasn't grafted and made wicked. Like he doesn't pop out the womb and kill someone, you know? Yokes the doctor with the umbilical, you know? He doesn't do anything like that. You know? Unless it's Family Guy or some shit.
Right.
It's made like that.
Yeah, he's made weak. So weak that he's predisposed to do anything beyond morality to survive. That was the whole point. And he becomes wicked. The same thing to me with an animal. And if we study animals, what we can show and prove is that pigs are quite smart. Now, smart doesn't mean that they're moral or ethical. Because some animals, you know, people love animals. They might argue about certain animals being like that. Like a dolphin, we could argue about dolphins and other animals, horses, things like that, right? That they have certain ethics. You know, when they save each other. Even fish have been shown. Like there's a, you know, I think it's called What a Fish Knows. Really mind-blowing book about fish in general. Right? They're not stupid like we think. You know?
Right. They have intelligence. There's intelligence there.
Yeah, there's a lot of intelligence. But a pig is shown to be very smart. I didn't attach it to any kind of morality or anything like that. But what it means is the real wickedness is what we're doing with the animal. That we should just let this animal live. Now, a lot of animals, though, even if they're not like a hybrid or a breeded, they are breeded for or domesticated for certain uses. And the pig has been domesticated for certain uses in the farm and all that kind of stuff, right? These are things that we disagree with doing. We don't find it righteous to do that. You know what I mean? And the pig is just one aspect of Western culture about domestication of animals for food and stuff like that that weren't part of our culture. Whether you look at the native indigenous culture and the way they have hundreds of different uses and seeds that were here, that were being planted and crops of all type of varieties. And we go back to, you know, ancient African and Indian civilizations, right? That still hold true today, you know? The difficulties in conquering agriculturally still to this day are the westernized man's lack of real knowledge of the soil, you know what I mean? They still, even at this 20, you know, in this 21st century, you know what I mean? We just have to look at Latin America, South America, and the new crops that come up like that, or people are just starting to get with, like acai berries, quinoa, yerba mate, you know, things like that, you know what I mean? Which I love all of those things, but you know,
fruits or something?
Acai berry is a fruit, quinoa is a grain, yerba mate is like a tea, which is a great tea.
But they sell them like, they don't sell them in no supermarket, regular supermarket.
Well, no, you're gonna have to go to a health food store to get that stuff. You know, acai berries are not like if you think berries are expensive, like blackberries, blueberries, and raspberries, they're way more expensive. Yeah, they're way more expensive. You get a little bit for like $3 though.
Quinoa is available.
Quinoa is becoming more
because
in the early 2000s, quinoa was like, nah, I'm not eating that shit. That shit
right.
Because it was way too expensive, you know. And but now it's less. It's still more expensive than rice and stuff, but it's not. It's doable if you wanna try it. And I think we also try these foods, you know, once or twice at least, you know.
Yeah.
The yerba mate tea, just to conclude that, the yerba mate tea is a tea that you can use to replace coffee because it's caffeinated, but it has a more natural caffeine. It, you know, it doesn't give you that headache that coffee.
Say more natural caffeine, like the coffee bean is naturally caffeinated.
The coffee bean is caffeinated, but it doesn't give you the carcinogens. So when you roast coffee, carcinogens reveal themselves. You know what I mean, as a byproduct. You know what I mean, and the effects of the caffeine are more intense. right? But people,
And
if they
regular
don't,
coffee.
if they don't drink coffee, they get headaches and stuff.
Yeah.
I've used yerba mate for a couple of years, and I don't get that at all. You know. The only problem would be like if you drank it like at night or something, and you intended to sleep at night, which would be more of a use of a herb the wrong way. You know what I mean? Just like you wouldn't use chamomile if you're trying to wake up.
The
you know?
chamomile, yeah, that's
Yeah.
gonna sedate you a little bit.
Yeah, that's gonna relax you. So you know, but they're not tranquilizers. They're not, you know, you're not gonna drink a chamomile tea and just fall flat in the face. You know what I mean? But the same thing when you have about, they give you a little focus, but you're not gonna be like pumped like you had those pre-workout things at Vitamin Shop. You know what I mean? Right? Or Red Bull. But the point was is that I said all this in the thing, and then it quickly degenerated to me not being belonging, teaching at the school because I'm Puerto Rican, because I'm not original. Somehow Puerto Ricans aren't original. I'm too light-skinned to teach here, and all those kind of things. And these are
all types of
yeah, these are common things. And the more he goes into it, and he's had his own videos where he speaks about me, and it's only his own sad commentary. So apparently
that don't have any magnetic.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nobody's.
Nobody's watching. He might get
But
maybe
he
10
said,
views.
I watched the video to see his psychosis, and it's really not me. It's really some Puerto Rican girl that he was going out with that just, you know, left him hanging dry, and probably called him nigger at the end of it. Said,
Oh,
"You've
yeah.
really been too black for me. Your nose, blah blah, whatever it was," and bounced on him and went all Euro on him, and now I have to feel the fallout of that because obviously I'm responsible for every single Puerto Rican woman's decisions in the planet. Though, you know what I mean? I don't know what I mean. But yeah, you know, and again, look, when you have this knowledge and you come from, if you're not so-called African American, you're gonna get hassle from your own family, but you also get, as we all do, but we also get hassle from the community that you were coming from. Yeah. So there's a lot of Puerto Ricans that see me do good things and feel that I should be doing these things in the name of only Puerto Ricans. Yeah. You know, whereas I feel like whatever I'm doing though is all the same. You know, it's all the same.
Like I got this well, I live in Melrose Projects, right? And it's just I already had a fight with the dude next door because of the music. You understand what I'm saying? Like I know when you
Your music was too loud, his music
his music was too loud. You know what I'm saying? I got babies in there, and but as I did more of the knowledge, I've seen that there's more of a racist aspect to it. It's not just you playing your music, son. It's a lot of black women up here. No men really is up on that floor. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of black women with children up here, bumping your music 2, 3 in the morning.
2, 3 in the morning.
Showing nobody no respect. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, long story short, me and dude got into it. You know, now he kind of cut it out. You know, I had to show him, listen, man, you know, it's bad that it led to this, but I've been trying to tell you, like, come on, show some respect, son. You know what I'm saying? You got ladies living next to you. You got my family over here. I got 3, 4 little babies running around. You know, and you got a bunch of other women, not even like families. It's not men in the house. You know what I'm saying? You probably got teenagers, but ain't no real men that's gonna really approach that situation like, bro, it's 2 in the morning, man. What are you doing, man? You know, people got work tomorrow. You know, so you one thing led to another. Then I got the other guy. Just happened to be both of them Spanish.
Spanish.
Exactly. They got the guy downstairs, you know, every time my lady walk past, he say some slick, you know, you almost, like, so my girl be like, yo, who you talking to? Or, I'm not talking to you. So how come every time she go past, you might say, oh, y'all feel like punching the shit out this bitch. Just little, so I'm like, yo, I try not to get riled up by it, because I know, like,
the pettiness right there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So just the other day, right, his girl, she had a stroke, I think, but she's an older lady. She's older than him. He's older than me. She come tell my woman, oh, my man said he was gonna crack some shit about crack her skull or something, right?
Oh nah, man.
Listen, God. So my girl come tell me this. So I'm like, first and foremost, why would she tell you she don't know who homeboy talking about, but come tell you that? She ain't gonna tell no Spanish girl that. So how she knew who he was talking about? Because it's repetitive. It's not the first time he said something of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So my girl like, so I'm like, listen, Just leave that dude, man. You know what I mean? Like sooner or later, you know, we gonna crash cars in the street. And then I see them. So he comes to me like awesome, yo, what's going on, man? So I'm looking like, yo, is this nigga crazy, man? Like, cause I had my pit outside, you know. I'm like, yo, this dude's bugging out, man. And it's more funny to me because I already know. Y'all done called the cops on me like 80 times, man. Like 80 times. So I know it, you know, you really can't be that serious to say you're gonna crack my girl in her skull, man. You know what I mean? If you're gonna turn around and call the cops because you're saying you hear music. But what I'm saying though, the point of the matter is there's a racist aspect behind it. Because you only say shit in front of Spanish people. You don't say shit around black people like that. You know what I'm saying? You only say it around Spanish people. The dude next door. You play all this rap, hip hop music, da 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 da. But you're not black. Like your culture not black. You know what I'm saying? But then you play the reggaeton music, but I know you being disrespectful behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like I just feel it like you'll have a speaker over here. You don't hear the speaker there, you hear the speaker over here. I had to move my couches, cause I'm like, yo, the shit vibrate. So one guy got mad, I threw my ottoman on the wall. Boom, I threw it on the wall. So he comes out my door, like, yo, you broke my, I said, I broke what? He said, you broke my leg. Long story short, we get the squad, you know what I mean? I bust him up, you know what I mean? Go back in the house, whatever. But you know, he's showing a little more respect, but there's a racial aspect just in that area regardless. You know what I'm saying? As far as dealing with blacks and Hispanics. You know, I'm not racist, you know what I'm saying? Because I know the black man is God and these are understanding seeds. You know, but they don't see it like that. And I'm not gonna waste my time because I just may get hurt. You know what I'm saying? I just may get hurt. Trying to teach them to be civilized. Like dude knock on my door talking about, I'm like, yo son, listen man, you playing your music all crazy. He like, yo, I ain't your son. I may get hurt, dog. You understand what I'm saying? Trying to teach niggas civilization. So, you know what I mean? I came to the conclusion like, man, listen, if you don't do what needs to be done, then, you know, I'm at jeopardy, my woman at jeopardy, my children's at jeopardy. You know what I'm saying? So as far as civilization, not saying to all Hispanics, but some of them that I've encountered, like, y'all can't have that, man. They can't have that, you know what I'm saying? Because I've experienced racism from them, you know what I'm saying? So I always look at it, you know, like, real deeper. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see you, God, like, there's no doubt in my mind that you're a representation of this nation. There's no doubt in my mind about that. You know what I'm saying? But other people that trying to teach them that civilization, it don't really work for me. And I only say that because the God got Kim be like, yo, you gotta teach God. Yeah, God, that's a fact, but you can't teach.
You also gotta know your audience. You also gotta know how to approach them, man. You know what I mean? Like, and do you know that their history to even conversate with them? So you come at them and say the black man is God, but they don't understand your language. You get what I'm saying? They may not understand exactly what you're saying. So they may, the black man is God, and they don't even connect to that.
But now I have another question. Does that dismiss all the wickedness that they were doing before you took? Because mind you, if you're saying a black man is God to them, then you already was civilized. You already civilized. Does that, just because they don't understand my language, do I gotta bow down and
you
try
just
to reach them like that?
No. What you gotta do, if you live in there, you gotta figure out how to navigate it in a civilized way. You know what I'm saying? And you gotta figure out, like, you know, how to deal with it. I mean, you gotta handle it. It's not just it's not a solution I can just give you and tell you, because I'm not in that situation. I just say that you gotta draw up a solution for yourself.
I already know. I already told my woman, I'm just getting tired of hearing it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just getting tired of hearing it.
Let me build on this for a little bit.
I'm just getting tired.
You know what I first think about? Remember, I'm forgetting his name though. The white guy in Short Eyes, when he goes, he looks at the Puerto Ricans. Still got a lot to learn about them. You know what I mean?
Right.
I seen that movie.
Yeah,
so it's an old movie, right?
Yeah. And it's funny that was written by Miguel Pineda, one of the great Puerto Rican poets and writers, and definitely a precursor to hip hop.
Is that a musical, or was it kind of?
It's not a musical.
But it has like
a play.
It
was made into a movie.
They singing and
they
doing all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a play. Yeah, it's not a play, but because they put because Curtis Mayfield did the score and the
Curtis
soundtrack,
Mayfield,
they
okay.
rejected,
Yeah, 'cause he
which
was
is
in
one of
there.
my favorite albums from
Oh yeah.
Okay.
the short ass soundtrack that he made was amazing.
Okay, huh.
Yeah, amazing. But I will say this though, right? First, in general,
No, we're not Muslim.
when we go
Thanks.
5%, 85%, right? 10%. It is really the nature of certain people, right? The 85% are not defined by good or bad. They're defined by inconsistency. So one day they'll be wrong to you, the next day they might be trying to be nice to you. They have to be inconsistent. So even if they were more so on the good side with you, you still would have to be ready for them to be bad. You understand what I'm saying?
Yo, God, I never heard that before, but it's sad because
Well,
that's the truth. Like,
the 85%, their nature, because they don't have a knowledge of themselves, their nature is to submit. So they submit to the whatever, any which the wind blows, right? To quote Syl Johnson.
Watch our clothes on the way out.
Allah's the original black man with the proper knowledge of himself.
Right.
All right, yeah.
So then once you have a knowledge of self, then you're in the bracket of either 5% or 10%, and now you have a choice, right? It's really those people that have that choice. Those that become 10% are those that decide to what? Conquer with what they learn. In other words, I'm going to do this for me and change everything to suit my needs and my desires, my wants. They're conquering. The 5% are those who master the situation. They're not trying to change people, but they will present the truth and deal with the truth. And so that they give it freely. They work on changing themselves, and everything around them happens to change in accordance with that because their power is exceptional. The thing about it though, when I think about the real problem that we have as 5%, right? And this would be a problem for you. This is a problem that you were kind of, even when you talk about Darkim telling you to teach, and you're like, no, again, you're absolving yourself, right?
Come to the class,
from the
Papa.
duty because
Don't disrupt the class.
Hear me out. Absolving yourself from the complete duty because you've already tried and it was too hard. I'm not telling you to go back and do that duty in that particular situation. What I am telling you is this: don't use it as a bracket. The problem with teaching all of the original people on the planet Earth, though, is that we're forgetting that Yaqub divided us to make the devil. And so the way that the society would work is as he had created them in division. So it doesn't work if the society makes black, brown, and yellow as a denomination, and then everybody is all united. So that way you immediately see someone like me, and you already know I'm down. And I immediately see someone like Infinite, and I already know that we're down. Then the devil would have much less power like that. You see what I'm saying? When I move out in the world, and I see a knowledge seed, a black seed, I see a yellow seed, I say someone that could be or ought to be, but I'm not stupid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now the thing is this, particularly with Latinos, right? A lot of people don't understand that the conquering and the oppression of a Latino is different from nearly everyone else. They're not only just conquered by the white man, they're conquered by a white man that technically is half original. Meaning that it was the European Spaniard that had to exile the Moor from its land, but could not exile the mixed blood that was there for over 700 years. Those Moors. So their culture, their civilization, whatever they have learned is coming from the original man and much of their bloodline. So when the Spaniard comes to the Americas, his conquering of those and his enslavement of the indigenous and then the African slaves that he imports, right, have a different relationship to him than, let's say, the English would with those of the United States of America. Major example, they don't see a complete subhuman nature of the subject that they enslave. This is a big deal because when the American slave dies, he's telling them that he goes to hell. That you ain't got no heaven, whatever, I don't care where you go, but you ain't coming to this heaven when we're going, it'll be better than this, but it ain't being where we are, and you're not really a human, you're an animal. Whereas, for the most part, in most of the countries, including the Latin Caribbean, the slave is not considered subhuman in that nature. He's still a child of God, Jesus Christ, the mystery God, and he's still under their branch. Just a little bit more unfortunate. So when you look at the said nations, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and go throughout Latin America, they didn't have to get through slavery. You know what I'm saying? In other words, for Americans, you were granted freedom. That changes the mindset of a people. Like, you couldn't do it yourself, which is totally not the truth. But the way it's taught, you were emancipated by that white man with the big top hat. You know what I mean? Whereas in the Latin Caribbean, especially like a country like Dominican Republic, where the facets of slavery and the hierarchy was not very suitable for the agrarian cattle society, it kind of just devolved. So slavery is seen as something that they just kind of got through. It's a different mentality in the individual, and this slavery is not that many generations back. So the experience is different. Then you couple it, right, with different forms of oppression that collide and exchange themselves over countless years. You have what? You have, for example, Dominican Republic achieving their identity, right, by freeing themselves from the Haitians that gave them their freedom. Because the Haitians gave them their freedom, but the Haitians didn't have enough resources to actually institute it. So it became more like, well, imagine if you get free, but you still don't know anything. But we still have to use the same systems and same forms. So it's like you're doing the same thing. So now it feels more like you got a new master. And the Dominican landowners, the colonial landowners like Duarte, the famous Duarte that everybody loves, those people were seen as what? They were able to propagandize and say, listen, this is the freedom that you wanted, and they were able to reconquer. The true Dominican independence, though, is said to go be against the Haitians, but it really didn't happen anytime soon, because the United States actually invaded Dominican Republic 3 times in the 20th century. Okay? So, but the anti-Haitian sentiment becomes something that nationalizes the Dominican. In other words, the Latin Caribbean and the Latin America, they are taught that they are actually citizens of their country. So unlike the African American, who's like not really a citizen, we have famous authors like whether it's Du Bois or there's Garvey that all spoke about this contradiction and hypocrisy. The Dominican, for example, is actually a Dominican citizen. Feels that way completely. You see? So his national identity now is made to be of a Spaniard identity versus an African identity that is said to be what those guys have in Haiti. And that propaganda is multiplied most notably by dictators like Rafael Trujillo.
How about Hugo Chavez?
Well, Hugo Chavez, I wouldn't consider him a dictator. I would consider him more of a liberator, right? But because I'm using the word dictator in all its evil sense, right? And U.S.-backed dictatorship, right? Trujillo literally assassinated 10 to 20,000 people on the borders of Haiti and Dominican Republic during his reign, only under one question. He asked them a question, and the people that were doing the killing, and if they answered with what seemed like a French accent, they were slaughtering them.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So this kind of thing, for people to justify it, they end up justifying it, saying that this is their nation and that they are a Spaniard nation, and vice versa. Haitians have to realize that they are being oppressed by their own neighbor, just so their neighbor has an identity.
So basically, at the end of the day, they don't like blacks.
What I'm saying is this, though. It's not the same God. It's literally what I'm saying is that they were taught to not love themselves and what they are about. So when you're teaching, let's say you're going to teach a Dominican, you're teaching someone with a psychosis of error that is far different than where you came from. Right? This is a
totally
big
different
deal.
situation,
It's a big deal.
education,
This
all
is a
that.
big deal because we only have about 1 or 2 generations that can say that they're Dominican American, like they grew up in New York per se, or something like that. So they're slowly getting out of that and realizing, yo, this is a white man that started all this shit. You know what I mean? And a Puerto
That's
Rican.
rare though. That's
Puerto
rare. I
Rican-
run into
Right,
one of them that think like that.
Now, a Puerto Rican has been here for more generations, and a Puerto Rican has the double oppression of being conquered by the Spaniards and then being given to the U.S. and being a colony
From the United States, yeah.
of the United States, and in a most brutal way. Where just like African Americans can say, like the Tulsa riots, where they had, you know, whites and Klan members were throwing bombs on cities of blacks, this actually happened via United States in Puerto Rico as well, right? But a lot of Puerto Ricans are not taught that. See, you gotta understand though, right?
But
That
not
the
only
Spaniard,
them, a lot of us never
this-
been taught that.
of course,
You know
but
what
the
I'm saying?
Spaniard way of miseducation is a foundation for all of the Western world. That's why you have to study the Spanish Inquisition and the idea of the Spaniards exiling, finally defeating the Islamic Moors and making sure that everyone would never ever say that they were Islamic and get rid of their Islamic culture. This was a thing. So even today in Spain, people of southern Spain, like Andalusia and those places that are still very much in, I'll give you an example, flamenco music is a completely Moorish music. Flamenco music, right? It's just that we don't, most of the music, the majority of music that is the roots of our culture, which includes Latin, Caribbean, and which includes everything American, jazz, blues, all that, is not on that timing. It's not 4/4. So when we hear flamenco, it sounds like an awkward timing because it's East African and not West African. Our timing in our head is more West African. So that's why it feels weird. If you ever watch a flamenco, their timing seems weird. So we don't look at it as black. But that's because, again, we have our own ignorance of the complete diaspora that we're coming from. But I'm saying all this to say this. Every single place of individuals that you encounter have a different way of being 85. They have a different way of being blind, deaf, and dumb. You know, like
I've heard it like that, but I've heard it like who are the 85%? Poison animal eaters. You have some people that don't eat swine, but they don't know who true living God is.
of course.
I've heard it. Something like
There's
that.
there's
I've
layers
not in depth.
to those degrees. I
Yeah.
can go back to the layers.
Infamous layers.
Right.
It's always that. Like, you know what I mean? So like, you gotta know, like, for a person like me, who's literally second generation, like New Yorican. My father, not my mother, but my father was born and raised here, right? That's 2 generations, right? So the generation of a lot of Puerto Ricans is like 3rd or even 4th, right? So we already know, and we already have experience linking those fights for freedom. Black Panthers, Young Lords, they were all embedded together. So we come from that tradition where we know who's really starting all this, right? And also making music and culture that embraces our black culture, right? Because the African drumming, the polyrhythmic drumming, as an example, the congas, bongos, all being played together, timbales, all of that. That is something that wasn't here until the Latin Caribbean brought it back here. And if we go into the roots of jazz, we can find that with Dizzy Gillespie and others, and when they started to make music with John Pozo and all type of Cubans and Puerto Ricans, right? During those earlier generations, Puerto Ricans started to realize that. But you gotta understand, right, that throughout all of Latin America, the idea of whitening yourself is a much more profound way to achieve your goal. And that's also the other add-on. The 1-drop rule is reversed in Latin America. So that means that a brother that could look like you, if he achieves some kind of wealth, and now you change the way you act and live out, you actually are not black anymore. You see what I'm saying? Because the 1-drop rule means that if you can show that you had like some Frenchman making a croissant somewhere in the family tree,
Yeah, right.
then you are no longer black.
All right, so
You see?
can I ask you a question? Why? Alright, I don't want to misinterpret what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You said that the higher you get in society, as far as say in our economy, the higher you get, you won't be considered black anymore.
You
right?
will be considered
now, white.
Yeah, you're
now.
right.
Do you think that's
Because-
the reason why Sammy Sosa changed his skin like that? To be recognized not only as
Well, let me
as
say this first.
but also
Sammy Sosa was already doing wrong shit before.
Mm.
All right, because all of his statistics, I love baseball, and I discount the entire steroid era. So I'm not a Barry Bonds fan, I'm not a McGuire fan, I'm not a Roger Clemens, that racist devil fan. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff.
It was entertaining though, but it's not.
Oh, it's entertaining as hell though, but I'm still like my pop, you know. Willie Mays is still the greatest ball player ever. I'm still in those lines, you know what I mean? But
correct.
yeah, correct, right? That's the 5-tool player that did it all and didn't need steroid or anything like that. You know what I mean? And but the thing is this. Again, those are results of the psychosis. You know what I mean? The idea that like, we can pass for white, we are automatically seen as white. So I have the money to make myself look that way. But that's a Dominican's involvement in clash with American society as well. You see? Because again, in Latin America, the one-drop rule makes it where if you succeed, you're already white enough. You're already European enough. That one-drop rule doesn't count. So like, if we look on the other side, right, and this is indigenous cultures throughout the Americas, they have a lot of time vehemently noting that they are not African, that they are not linked with Africa in any way. You know what I'm saying? And some of that is reactionary to a little bit of a sloppy scholarship on a lot of African scholars' part, because they don't word this stuff distinctly and clearly. But also because we're always separating from the black man. Again, this is a result of exactly what the westernized world and education wanted us to do. You see? They wanted us to do that.
Also, God, you know the history with Hispaniola. The French side was the Haitians, and then the Spanish side was.
I made dollars born about that. To God.
And
Yeah.
you know, with Trujillo and the Parsley massacre. Cause see, what a lot of people don't know, though, God, Trujillo.
He was Haitian as well.
Half Haitian though.
That's right.
See?
And he was infamous for using massive amounts of whitening cream. So this is what we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? This is what we're dealing with, though. So
South Hatred.
and the lighter the individual child that you have is literally a great white hope in that family. So there is a possibility of them achieving things.
The wisdom degree.
Now that contrasts heavily. That contrasts heavily with the vast history of the African in America, because once they are able to pass, they can pass and leave their family. You see what I'm saying? That passing doesn't happen in Latin America. You pass and bring the whole family with you. It's far different. You see? The people that have passed and are no longer noted as African, that are from American slavery and have black blood, we have no idea who they are. They are Mr. Johnson, they are Mrs. Jackson somewhere, we don't have no idea who they are. You see? And then that's why in this world that we're in today with this knowledge stuff, it clashes, and the major clash we're always going to have is the obsessive and the ranging colorism that we have amongst each other. The massive colorism that African Americans have amongst themselves. The massive colorism that Latinos have among themselves. Because you say like the Dominicans and then the Puerto Ricans and stuff, Puerto Ricans have it among themselves too. Because so many of us are light-skinned. If we see a darker skinned Puerto Rican, it's like, oh well, he doesn't really, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't really know his stuff like that, this and that. And this is an American phenomenon clashing with what we had there. You know what I mean? And it, again, learning how to deal with the 85 is knowing all of these different, I call them psychosis because they're all incorrect. You know what I mean?
Now, to add on to what you were saying, God, right and exact, actual facts. It's also on us to see we're so disturbed that we forgot the essence of, genotype and phenotype, though, God. That's all it is, though, God. Cause see, a lot of us, we look original, but we're not original because we have adopted
That mindset.
the double ways. And like in the English C lesson 136, not understanding what is his own self, what is our own self. We can't even, most of us as a whole, you see what I'm saying? Can't recognize our own self, and that's terrible.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? God, like we're divided amongst ourselves, and the best way you can look at that is in religion, like all these denominations. I don't want to be divided from anything though.
Right.
If you're dealing with a denomination, you're dealing with a fraction. Now it's like for emphatically, hell no.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously in America, you don't see a European American go, he's really German.
That's right.
I don't mess with him. He's really German. That never really happens. You know what I mean? So it's really something for us, though. Now I'll say this though: we're out there supposed to teach the babies, but our reality teaches all people. You know what I'm saying? The way that we live, the way that we conduct ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And look, listen. I live in Washington Heights. So I constantly see Dominicans and I constantly know exactly what you're talking about. So when someone does that racist thing and they play the worst Spanish trap music, all Spanish trap is bad. There is no good Spanish trap.
Spanish trap, right.
There is no good reggaeton, no, that's a misnomer, you know what I mean? That's like saying that there's a good pork chop out there, you know what I mean? The healthier groovy pork chops, you know what I mean? Like, there is none, You wanna have fun dancing in the club and stuff like that too, it's whatever, you know what I mean? But to each their own, unfortunately. But the thing is, what I'm saying is this, right? People have always used their culture, and our own people have always used the way of declaring our culture as a way to combat and contrast things. You know what I'm saying? So just like if we had white neighbors, we would be blasting some hip hop shit all day. Just
No,
just,
not me.
Just cause.
What
I'm
I
saying
would do, I would
we
put on
as a
Read the
general
Rainbow.
statement. I'm not saying you. I'm saying we as a general statement though. We would have those rebellious tendencies if we didn't have a knowledge of self. If we didn't know how to deal with people in a civil manner and things like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we would have a lot of side comments and ways of dealing with things on the side. Now, Latinos do it to themselves, they do it amongst themselves, but they always do it against African American. And look, that's the thing that you have to deal with all your teaching. Because the world over, the entire world, on the lowest level of the totem pole is don't be like an African American.
Thanks.
Go to any country, go anywhere in Africa, go anywhere in Latin America, they could be on the lowest rung of the ladder. But they say, listen, don't be acting like those African Americans, because they'll look at you and they'll justify and they'll say stuff that isn't true. And the major thing is they got everything available to them and they don't use it though. That's always been the play. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's one of those things where you're criticizing people's shoes that you've never worn. Because a lot of what they don't understand though is that they will never go through the same things, right? That the African American will go through. It's designed that way. It is designed for separation. You know what I'm saying?
See, but where I blame some of them at is because they know that. They know that
Of course.
a lot of the odds
You
be
think
stacked
that-
against us.
You would think
And they
that
know
a
they
grown
get
man, that grown men and women with families and stuff wouldn't know that stuff. But remember, people grow up with their own issues, and they have to find a way to live their life above someone else. That's the American way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if there is some kind of totem pole that they could recreate, this is the one that they're going to recreate. It isn't right, but it is the way
To add
it
on
is.
to that, God. See, you can't fault those that don't know no better. This is why having knowledge of yours is most important, because when you have knowledge of yourself, the only way you have knowledge of others is to have knowledge of yourself, though, God. You see what I'm saying? And so those that don't know no better, even amongst original people, you can't knock a person because they don't know.
Right.
You can't do it, even though you're gonna get frustrated at times, like you ignorant, rambless mother.
The thing is, God, right?
That's how that goes.
When we go out and we teach and we share, teaching is just sharing. So what way will you share? You know what I mean? And the thing about it though is that we teach the uncivilized. But a lot of the things that people that we've seen, they're not uncivilized, they're just straight savage. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you're protecting yourself against the savage, not really able to teach them. What are you sharing with them? The thing is, I would say in any situation, are you in a position of control? Are you in a position of controlling yourself, which would be the knowledge of self?
Right.
Then that means that you would be able to do certain things, you know what I mean? Of course, though, if they're gonna do things as petty and stuff like that, this is how they claim themselves. This is, this is how they piss on their, on their tree. You know what I mean? But this is a savage way of dealing with life, and that's the way you're gonna deal with stuff. But all around, though, what I found though is a lot of grown-ups that don't really know anything. And remember, when I told you that whole Dominican history, I told you that because you could be with a Dominican elder who is educated, like really has a great language, a great way of speaking, a great dialect and everything, and he could speak to you in the most collegiate language about all the wrong history. You know what I'm saying? I've had people speak to me in a collegiate Spanish on high levels and try to explain to me how Haitians are cannibals. This, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, how do you deal with people like that? You know what I'm saying? Well, you gotta laugh at them. They're, just like you find our own people that will say, no way, blacks didn't make pyramids and that was from aliens and stuff like that, and they say stupid things like that because they just can't have it like that. Even if that would actually include their own, ancestors.
Mother.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean?
And to add on to that, guys, see, this is why I tell anybody, regardless of what school of thought that you're dealing with, what is the most effective way to reach people? It's through what? Linguistics. You understand what I'm saying, God? On this 196 million, 940,000 square miles and 57 million, 255,000 square miles of land, is one common denominator. It's linguistics. So if you can't reach them and speak their language and come to them as them, then it's going to be misunderstood. Linguistics is, you have to constantly study that, especially we go in the workforce, God. You have a lot of people, grown ass children, baby boys and baby girls that can't articulate, or as the elders used to say, break themselves down. See what I'm saying, God? This is not speaking white. It is being professional, being about your business. You understand what I'm saying, God? Linguistics, I can't reiterate that enough, though, God. Linguistics is the greatest thing to me ever, though, God. I love linguistics.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
You gotta know what language that you speaking to a person. Even when you're dealing with the English language, there's many different layers to the English language, right? And English is a language of confusion.
That's why grafted. This is why you see all these different words from different languages. I no longer speak like the Hebrew and the Creole, but see, that's part of linguistics as well. That's just being, they call it multilingual.
Right.
But see, when you're dealing with linguistics, especially English, it's a fork tongue. Because when you make an E, see, this is the E though. You turn it upside down, it's the pitchfork tongue. Pitchfork. So by having a mastery over it, you can make your understanding understood, as long as you're dealing with it in its proper form. I'm not talking about semantics. Semantics is just dealing with wordplay, like Scrabble and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Now, they say English is a trade language, meaning it was created just to understand trade.
Well,
Like,
it's been manipulated behind that because English is a Germanic language. You know what I'm saying? Coming out of Germanic tribes. You know what I'm saying? And then once they split up and then became actually England. You know what I'm saying? And England has a certain kind of a dialect or way of talking. Then you got the American language, but America is the one that popularized it, commercialized it, right? Commercialized the language, and now America commercialized the language. Everybody want to be it, but now that becomes a language that you could do trading with.
Facts.
Because not everybody, that's the language.
That totally answered my question.
Right. You know, and that's just like
That was-
like Chinese,
I was
and
thinking
you know, like
1813s, and I answered that shit from 1813s.
right, and that's 1813, but that's still dealing with America.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
The United
Like
States.
you said, they popularized it.
They popular
You know what I'm
and
saying?
commercial, and then you know with his music, they go around the world
Fact.
sharing his music,
Fact.
it's food, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's becomes a, you know, not everybody want to have a McDonald's or
It's customs.
or Starbucks. You know what I'm saying? They want to have that, and they also want to have, you know, they want to have the rap music, the pop music. They want to have pop music, not just rap music, because rap is a part of pop music, but pop music. They want to have that.
Everybody involved in it.
And that becomes a way of trading, because now and the biggest trader on the board is America.
America, word.
You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest trader.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's the biggest trader. So
Yeah.
and American language is English. So now being that they the biggest trader, now the people want to, you know, learn that language. How can I get some of what they got? How can
Exactly.
I how can I be
treated like them?
how can I be big with them? You get what I'm saying?
Fact.
And also, that's like, you know, you can use that as a metaphor, right? You know, like when you're in school, you know like how you have the popular crowd. If you're not doing with the popular crowd, you're not doing it. You're not in.
Yeah,
You a
yeah.
cornball.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
this
yeah.
is so this is why this is peer pressure on the world stage.
On the world stage.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
all it is, though.
And that's how it becomes a trade language.
Yeah, let me say something about two things though. One is this my commentary because I just have to say it, but the other is the thing that I would not like to see in anyone though that has a knowledge of self, or even anyone that's conscious on a level though, is that they use, and this constantly happens with people, that they use the experiences with particular individuals to be an outlier and reasoning to hate all of those individuals of that kind that they have decided. So all these Puerto Ricans, they ain't about ish. All these Dominicans, they ain't about ish. You know what I mean? And that's really where the problems come about. You know what I mean? The problems come about when we start to do that kind of stuff. And, you know,
Separate, divide it. Right, exactly.
Americans,
Exactly. Yeah.
most of the people that I meet though that are Latino that can't deal with this knowledge is usually because they have encountered someone who they say has the knowledge of self, right? But who treated them like that. You know what I'm saying? Who treated them like your people always do that. I mean, these are things that even I encountered. You know what I'm saying? But I guess I had the strength of mind and ego to really know that I was God anyway.
And the fortitude.
You know?
You gotta have fortitude.
Absolutely.
To,
Absolutely.
Especially
So-
you being a yellow sea god.
People will say good riddance to those that aren't there, but it's still sloppy and wrong teaching. You know, because let me tell you something, right? The thing about the diaspora, this is the first, we're in times though where we have a culture of the knowledge of self that includes the entire diaspora of original people. We actually have a music, hip hop, that was made by an entire diaspora, which has never really happened before. Once these original people's been separated, there hasn't been a music that is made. Go throughout the lands, go in different places and stuff. Musical genres are usually made by certain pockets of individuals. They are given layers, right? By once it travels, but it hasn't been in one place where different people of a diaspora contributed at one time to it. That's extremely rare, you know? And the thing about it, like we talk about, because I have to make commentary about the music, you know what I mean? You're not hearing someone blasting old salsa, stuff that was clearly African, stuff that was making songs about being African, being black, you know what I mean? You're hearing songs of, you know, you're hearing degraded songs of music that was designed to separate us. So, for example, even when we talk about the history, because you live in Melrose, so like hip hop is, you know, that's where hip hop is synthesized. You know, I have arguments when we go about where it was created and shit like that.
It's
There's
synthesized.
b-boying elements that come from here, there. The truth is that elements come from all of the diaspora. Like I was saying one time, a lot of up-rocking is salsa moon dancing. You know what I mean? So the thing about it, you're from the place where hip-hop synthesized, so we could say it was created, like all of it as one mesh, because it is a mesh culture. That's really what it is.
Actually fast, dog.
You know what I mean? And the interesting thing about that is that in the industry, people started to see that the proper way to speak about hip-hop was to speak about a diaspora that was black that made this music. And the only way they could describe the diaspora was to say that they were a black diaspora. Because all of the roots and all of the culture that every Latino and everyone else that gave to it was actual black elements. So the MCing, right? Because MCing has roots, and rhyming and stuff has roots in everything, even salsa rhymes. If you go back to the 70s and the classic stuff. But what I'm saying is that once Latinos were being recognized as Latinos that made hip hop music and things like that, they were immediately told that that wasn't their music and they weren't going to be pitched that way. So they had to find their own music, and that begins very diluted forms like freestyle, because freestyle is really a very diluted dance R&B. You know, that's really what it is. Because you got bad singers singing R&B songs, R&B dance songs, and they're usually, they weren't that good, but they had to find them quickly. You know what I mean? They had to find them quickly, and that's a fact. You know what I mean? Many of the hip hop people we know, like for example, Fat Joe, were told to do the freestyle music, just to give you, and I'm telling you that from Fat Joe telling me that. Okay, so it was this. Once you're in the industry, once you're in the magazines writing about it, the pitch was, this is an African American music. Every single black person that was of the diaspora and not African American was told, don't talk too much about that. And it took us years before we learned that Bambaataa, Jamaican, KRS-One, Jamaican. Before we learned Kool Herc is Jamaican, and the traditions that lead up to a breakbeat are from a Jamaican heritage of making music. You know, with the toasting, with the sound system culture, the sound clash culture, all of that, right? All of that was like, look, we just pitch them as they are, because they have a name that could pass for African American, right? They have a regular name, right? We do that. If they look like you and they were Puerto Rican, don't mention it. If they look like me, you're not signed, right? And it led Latinos to say, and you would see it in interviews and not know why they was dealing with separation. They said, listen, I just want to do music that we can say is ours. And that became what they were told to say, and a lot of them felt, that's what I want to say now too, because I feel ostracized already. You know what I mean? Because it's not like where getting a deal is the crabs in a barrel moment. So it's not like, let's say an African American artist goes, yeah, these guys really belong getting a deal. Nobody was going to do that. So nobody was going to say, hey, Pun, he really belongs getting a deal. Pun didn't get a deal because they said, hey, you rap incredible. It was Fat Joe kicking down doors and bringing him inside and saying, listen to him now. And a lot of the guys on that Capital Punishment album had to be persuaded to be on it. And it had nothing to do with their acceptance of Pun's ability. And I'm just using those as examples, because you're not going to get better than that. You know what I'm saying? That's top of the line and all-time MC. You know what I mean?
So they had to be persuaded to be on that
They
album.
had to be persuaded because record labels weren't going to allow. We don't want you doing records with that, or they're not going to put the investment in that. You know what I mean? And if you really dig into your research, though, then you'll find those. But the journalists of that time, they didn't really dig into that story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never really heard nothing about
Yeah. So what I'm saying is this, right? Everything is designed a certain way so we feel divided. And everything takes that turn that way. So even the music that you're hearing, though, it feels hypocritical, because it is. Like, you're doing a diluted, shitty version of rap, and you're using it to play and have some kind of like, look, to try to get at me and look down at me. When you're doing a bad version of my music. That's how it's got to feel when you hear Spanish trap. You know what I mean?
See,
Or you got somebody doing reggaeton.
honestly,
The
first times I was hearing that music that the man be playing next door, I thought it was hip. I'm like, the beat is crazy. I'm sitting here bopping like, that shit is hot. Then I start hearing the words, like, wait a minute, that shit's Spanish. But it sound like it's a regular hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
And the
It
whole
sound
world
regular.
does it. And the whole world does it.
Word, right?
You know what I mean?
Crazy.
And the whole world does it. The thing I would say is this, right? The reason I'm saying that is because reggaeton and Spanish trap music, especially reggaeton, which is the leader in this and everything else follows, that what led to the completion of or I could say the completion of the degradation that becomes reggaeton, right? That becomes so because they distance themselves from those who were doing hip hop and the way to do it. So they distance themselves from sampling and the tradition of doing that. That's why you hear the same drum beat again and again. Because they're not going to sample, they're going to make only dance music. They're not going to have topics and stuff, which was already being introduced. And if you were in there in PR, Puerto Rico itself, 1994, 1995, guys are starting to rhyme. They're starting to say some things, you know? But then all of a sudden, they start to take a turn and say, wait a minute, we make more money. And the assumption is, our music's always a party music. So let's just do it like that. Again, it's because it's excuses that led to that distancing, right? Because remember, the only other music that we can say blatantly isn't a party music from the Caribbean, the Latin Caribbean, is salsa. But salsa is developed from son roots from Cuba in New York. So when it becomes really lyrical, Ruben Blades talking about political situations and all types of subjects. Like they literally, you won't notice it. You dance to it and it's like he's talking about oppression, all this kind of stuff, right? That's developing here. You know, he's from Panama, others from New York, right? Those are developing here. Songs for the freedom of Puerto Rico, those are developing here. So they didn't have that kind of lyricism. Everything was party shit.
Yeah.
The musicianship was complex, but not the lyricism. That shit happens here in New York. You know what I mean? So when Puerto Rico adapts to it, their versions continue to be more party oriented. You know what I mean? Even the salsa from Puerto Rico, like Gran Combo, Willie Rosario, stuff, they don't really have like any kind of complex lyrics. You know what I mean?
Right.
So what I'm saying is what I'm saying to you is like you have to. One of the things that I think every student should engage in is learning about the other cultures. Like you shouldn't be living in the heart of Medina and you don't know any Jamaican culture. You know what I mean? You should be studying some Jamaican culture. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you just go to the parades and the Caribbean parade and start dancing and try to grind with some naked chick. That's not what I mean by the culture.
Exactly.
But you learn their music, learn. You got
Walk
at least
amongst
start
the walk amongst the
with
natives,
Bob.
man.
You know what I'm saying? Start with Bob and work your way back. You know what I mean? But you got to learn about the culture of the original people that you're around because then you will understand. Because a lot of people think like, oh, they're close to conscious because they're Jamaican. But because reggae and roots reggae became so conscious and Bob Marley's such an icon, the actual reactionary response from the 80 towards the 85 is even more extreme. So then a lot of people get surprised when they meet a Jamaican that acts white or is very Europeanized. They're like, and that's most of the population.
It's like what?
You know?
Most of the population acting white.
Yeah,
huh?
because remember, for example, that phrase, like the famous Bunny Wailer album, Blackheart Man. Blackheart Man, now when we sing it like it's the Blackheart Man, and we sing it like it's a wonderful praise.
Yeah.
But that was a slur. The Rasta is a Blackheart Man. You don't approach him. He's like a boogeyman. You know what I mean? So all these things like, the Rasta roots culture reappropriated a lot of these negative terms toward them. You know what I mean? But most of Jamaica is really anti that. You know what I mean? Just like any 85 population. Just like any 85 population. So you always got to know about the people that you're dealing with. Because then what happens, you're saying you're 5%, and I mean that rhetorically, not you. You'd be saying you're 5%, but you'd be just as ignorant as them. So you got to know why they're dealing with certain things, how they stray away from things, you know what I mean? And like I said, look, with Latinos, it's an uphill battle. Because now they don't have a music that speaks to them as far as able to express themselves situations. So they're not, just like you see when brothers play trap or they play like a lot of ignorant shit and mollied up music. The Latinos don't have a music either that speaks to them on a deeper level either on the surface. It's all popped out, pop oriented. So
Dance
it doesn't mean their dance are pitbull. You know what I'm saying? So
that Yankee and all that.
yeah, so it doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't resonate. You You know what I mean? It doesn't resonate. It is just as blind as anything else, and it doesn't speak to any of the culture. You know, and even if you study Latin music and you try to look for like quality versions of salsa or merengue or something like that, you won't even find them. It's very difficult to find. So we talk about hip hop, and hip hop has tons of great music, but you have to look for it. Other genres, they've already been pretty much destroyed. You know, so these are things to look at when you look at the culture and the wave of people, because all of the original people here, they have culture is a vast part of their you know, the cultures. And it tells you a lot, though, the type of music that people play. You know what I mean? It tells you everything that you need to know. You know?
See, you know what this what I've learned. I've never looked at Latin culture as
Peace, God.
Peace.
I've never looked at Latin culture as or I never looked at it disrespectfully. You know what I'm saying? When I say that, I always looked at it as kind of, you know, I admired it because I knew y'all had your own language, y'all had land, y'all had your own flag, so y'all had something to stand for. But I do recognize that y'all don't respect, or that they didn't respect black culture. Now maybe it's because they don't recognize a black culture besides hip hop.
They don't recognize. A lot of times they don't recognize themselves as being black.
Look,
And that's what I'm saying. They don't recognize their own.
but that's what I'm saying.
They
They
don't
recognize
recognize
themselves as being Spanish.
Right, and Spanish
and
is a that's the language that's the conqueror, Spaniard.
Yeah, they adhere to that shit. They, like that's what they stand for.
The
They
majority,
stand
you
on
talk about the 85% of that. So you got to understand it, because there are certain, like as my brother,
But it's
who
rare.
recognize.
It's rare,
That's
though,
right,
dog.
but
That's what I'm saying.
You have to encounter that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because look, you're from the Bronx. You know that most of the political movements and most of the pro-Afro indigenous movements of Puerto Ricans, even Dominicans that exist in New York City, that embrace the African indigenous cultures, and of course their heritage and genetics, are usually in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's how you're looking at things and where you're looking. You know what I mean?
Like my
People
children
don't
go to,
know that. You know what I'm saying?
My children go to PS1, right? The school's predominantly Latin, man. And a lot of you not. Why? I don't know. But there's some racism even in the school.
Sure.
Even in the school. Like,
Now, as
I'm
an
saying to
observation,
myself,
right? As an observation, right? You notice it toward your children, right? Due to knowledge to how they treat each other, though. Because the camaraderie that you might be thinking is not as you know, blatant as you think. You know what I mean?
Now,
And
what I
remember,
can do say.
and I'll tell you something though. Let me give you an example, right? I've been in Dominican households, right? Where one person will look at another and say, they're gonna go far though because they're lighter skinned. And totally demean the other person. And these could be two children the same age, but different shades in the same family though. Think about how demoralizing that is to that individual. And how bullshit it is of a hype up for the other one. You know, because imagine going somewhere thinking that you automatically dope with shit because you're light skinned. What a setup!
But that's the
What a fucking setup! You know what I
The
mean?
bad thing is that's the mentality of some men, some understanding see men today.
Of course.
Prime example, it's my man. I like what he be saying, but sometimes I be feeling like, you know, you ever heard of Hassan Campbell?
Yeah.
He be like that sometimes because you don't necessarily say, yo, because I'm light skinned, I'm better, but you'll call black men monkeys. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You wouldn't even say black niggas. I'd rather you say that than call them monkeys. Just for you to take it to that level, show that you automatically feel that you is
Entitled.
predominant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like that. But
that's the
my father's
pen.
like you. My father, he like you. He like your complexion. You understand what I'm saying? But
that's the pen. That's the pen that they got in their head.
I know my dad don't act like that though. You know what I'm saying? My pops don't act like that. You know what I'm saying?
Again, the colorism is
Regular.
a thing. And one of the ways to combat it, to me, is not just to remind ourselves this knowledge of self.
Peace, life, and love.
But at the same time, what we also got to be studying each other's cultures, like what they're really about, what they entail, and things like that. You know what I mean? And again,
that's one thing about me, though. I show mad respect. Like, I go into their store, to their establishment. I try to speak, gracias, or listen to them and take it in. I try to show respect. And sometimes, you know what I get, God? Some bullshit happen. You might do something. Sooner or later, you're going to do something. No matter how much respect I show you, I'm coming in with my money, you're going to raise the price. No matter how, you know what I'm saying? They always do something to me, man. Mm-hmm. Always, God. Mm. And sometimes I feel like, well, maybe they think I'm soft or something, or no, but you know what it comes out to be? That they're the majority over there, as far as Latin.
You know what?
You
know what? It's interesting though, man. Like, see, I respect that your experience, but I don't always experience that. You see what I'm saying? I walk in the Dominican and Hispanic neighborhoods. A lot of times I get respect. You know what I'm saying? And it maybe how I'm relating to my own self in relation to them. You see what I'm saying? I don't always get that. I'm not gonna like dismiss your experience as.
Like, when I say disrespect, I can't say, like, they bump me. Nah.
No, I know that's just about, like, in the stores and whatnot, in the, like, in the neighborhoods, like, you know what I'm saying?
I'll give a prime example, right? It's a store I always go to, right? One day, I think I was drinking, God, and you know what I'm saying? I took my wallet out and I put it on top of the candy.
Okay.
Right? Because I was going to pay the guy. I walk out the store, mad fat. Now, there's nothing but Spanish guys in the store. I didn't even get to the next corner, God. I turned around, oh shit, my wallet, go back. Wallet going, yo, you ain't see my wallet, Primo? I always give you my money, Primo. You ain't see my wallet right here, Primo? Nah, Poppy, I ain't see. Yo, Primo, check the camera. Primo on the big ass flat screen. Nah, Poppy, the camera don't work. Yo, what you mean, Primo? You understand, Primo, what you talking about? Primo, I just left. I was not even 10 minutes, bro, what you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, but you gotta also look at you were
saying?
drinking too, though, man.
God, listen, I know I left my wallet in that store, God. I didn't even get to the corner. I came back. Shit was gone. They took my wallet in that store. And then he told me he don't know the camera right there. But you don't want to check the TV. Alright. No problem, Primo. But you know what I see every time I go into that store now? I see in your eyes, you know you owe me. But I don't take advantage of that.
Again,
but I know you know that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not surprised at that.
Yeah.
But I've had the same situation. I'm a
But I'm not
Puerto Rican in the
dealing with,
Dominican neighborhood. You know what I mean? So, and nobody confuses me for Dominican.
Fact.
You know what I'm saying? I have a classical Puerto Rican face. You know what I'm saying? So,
classic.
yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I have salsa written over my face. You know what I mean? So, no one confuses me for that. You know what I'm saying?
Fact.
So, it's the way that you deal with that situation and stuff like that. It's the way, and you're gonna get, I see it like this, right?
Now, Primo know
Whether I
I'm
work,
like, yo,
if I work around if I work with devils,
peace, Lord.
and they do devilishment,
Say, King.
right? If I work with devils and they do devilishment, right? That just shows and proves my degrees. Peace, God.
That's what I'm saying, God.
If I work around, if I go through things with 85%, then I'm just like, that's what the 85 are. You know what I'm saying? I've got to be more on point. You know what I'm saying?
And that's
As
what
opposed
keeps
to
me
85.
in mathematics, God.
You know?
That right there.
Yeah.
Because
But I'm saying
they
it's like,
show and prove the mathematics, God.
Look,
they show and prove it.
the point of all this
10%, 85.
The point of all this though is that there's always a growing bitterness that could develop.
Yeah.
And you always gotta work to combat that.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Because it could overtake you and stuff and you could always have an issue. You know what I mean?
See,
There are all kind of slurs that Dominicans have for Boricuas and stuff. You know what I mean? And a lot like Boricua is a term of endearment. It really is an Afro-Indigenous term. Like we really take it like that. So if you call Boricuas, it's like this,
Yeah.
But a lot of Dominicans, not all of them though, when they go, and it's been embraced now, so people take it different, younger people. But a lot of older people often call Puerto Ricans and they go, that's a body. Like they'll just go, they'll cut it short.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that for older Dominicans, that's a dart.
That's derogatory.
That's
all
a
that.
dart.
Saying?
It's like, boy,
Like that's a
extra
dart.
language, man.
Especially from certain older people.
you want to play me? You trying
Yeah.
to
See, that's
So,
what I'm
like,
saying. All that's derogatory.
Again, I'm
man.
around all Dominican people, so I could be
all
I
that.
could be a dick and be like, what's up? So what's up? You know what I mean? What you trying to say? You know, like you say the whole shit. You know what I'm saying? Like we were trying to say, like you're trying to, you know. And look, if we do shit like that, like we'll always be in some kind of warpath and shit like that. You know what I mean? And we're always gonna be in some kind of thing. Look, we was here before them. Like so, if they're all embracing the culture that we have, though, it's always gonna look like, oh, you doing our shit though, but then you still try to demean us though. You know, it feels the same way to me too, because I see Dominicans do hip hop stuff, and then they try to act like they're doing this shit, and I'm like, nigga, you doing this shit all wrong and shit, so don't act like you're doing this shit. I brought this shit to you. We was doing this shit before you, and that could be an age thing, that could be a culture clash between different Latinos. All that kind of shit is all better than shit. You know what I mean? It's just like the other day, what was it? Somebody was talking about salsa, and they was like, yeah, I heard Colombians made this shit. I was like, nigga.
Wow.
Because some Colombians will claim that. You know what I'm saying? Because
Salsa
they came,
music?
yeah. And because when it went into Colombia, they came up with their own unique styles. But
Oh.
that doesn't mean that they created it though. And the people, the legendary players from there, like Oscar de Leon and stuff like that, they have already said they didn't make the shit up because they were here to come get it.
They added on.
You know? Yeah, and they added on their own unique style. Just like we might hear hip hop from other countries and it's like, yo, they did something different with it, right? Or like another region, like LA or whatever like that, right? Right? But yeah, my thing is like the bitterness though, because being a 5%, you have to work on not being bitter about certain things and not letting that accumulate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the 85 is gonna be the 85. You know what I'm saying? You're saying like, yo, I want you to respect me, but he has no building blocks to respect you. Because when he closes that door, he might understand what you said, but then he might sit down and eat some pork rinds to watch the ball game, and everything you said is out the door. Like he's just totally went brain fog.
No, see.
You get what I'm saying?
I don't want you like, honestly, I really don't want you to say nothing to me. You know, like, because first and foremost, like I'm at the point of my life where if you're not saying nothing productive to me, there's like really no sense to even conversating. Except, yo, how you doing, bro? All right, keep it moving. But there's like no, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not really looking for nobody.
It sounds like in
respect.
that situation,
You know what I'm saying?
because there's been a whole bunch of confrontations, then you just want some civility and stuff. But I'm saying don't let that extend to all the populace though, because when the populace is dominated by individuals, then you get their version of 85, not yours that you're used to. You know what I'm saying? That's just a fact, you know what I'm saying? Like where I live, I don't get that Puerto Rican version of 85, which I was used to in the beginning of when I got knowledge. I get the Dominican version. You know what I'm saying? I get the Dominican version, and it's it's even different because now, because everything is so commercialized, they think that they have their own culture separate from us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, man, that's like a shitty version.
And basically, that's what I was trying to say with the music, with
of course,
with that music, that it sounds like hip hop, but it's not. The beats sound like rap beats.
I mean, they've been influenced.
Remember,
that's what I'm saying.
No, remember this too, right?
But that's
like,
not their
look,
culture.
What do we
though.
love about? Well, look, listen to this. Hip hop musically is a breakbeat repeated. The truth is Kool Herc only focused on that, but nearly every other music does that. Salsa merengue will hold a beat for about 3 hours. I've seen Guido players play that Guido, the scraping thing, for a half hour.
Same.
And it's the same rhythm, and you're supposed to dance furiously, because that shit is dance fast for that long, and if you ain't got it, you ain't got it. So what I'm saying is like, the idea of a break, a continued drum sequence, hip-hop didn't really invent that. That's why I say it's also a synthesis, you know? It's just that Kool Herc highlighted it so blatantly. You know, so blatantly because he was using pre-recorded music. It's different when
doing it live.
When you do it live, because you're getting more of an energy. No matter what anybody does, you'll never play the second drum hit the same way you play the first.
Right.
It's all its unique drum hit. But until you have hip hop where like, it's you're sampling it, you're looping it, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's on its own timer. It's digital. But all those things come into play. Like, what I would say is like every time, one thing that like if I'm annoyed at a particular whole people's, I try to spend a little time too learning about their cultures and the history, because you could always be disillusioned. You know what I mean? And like, you could be disillusioned because you look at what they talk about, the history that they advocate.
Like,
They advocate all of the wrong people.
it's this one dude, right? Since I first moved over there, every time he see me, yo, man, how you doing, brother? How you doing today? Every time I see him. Since I first moved over there, I've been knowing him for like 4 years. When he first see me, that's the first thing he said to me. And you know what really resonated in me? He called me brother, son. Brother. That's what he said, brother. Yo, man, how you doing, brother? That's how I knew, man, this guy, he not stupid, man. He got a brain, and he been around some cultured people in order to look at me and call me brother, just out of respect. You know what I'm saying? He like, yo, what's up, man? How you doing? How you know? Nah, he always call me brother, always. So I look at him like that's a brother too. You know what I'm saying? I look at him like a brother. You know what I mean? Not saying, oh, I'll ask you for anything, but if I see you in trouble, I help you as a brother. You know what I'm saying? If you come to me and you need help, I'm gonna help you as a brother. You know what I'm saying? That's how you come off to me.
Yeah.
And that's the only one since 4 years I lived out there.
It's always like every African neighborhood that I've always been in it, like, you know, predominantly on Bed-Stuy, Brown, all that stuff. I've always been embraced.
And you know what's crazy?
You know what I'm saying?
Why don't Africans? I live around mad Africans too, God. Mad Africans. Yo, I'm talking about mad Africans. Why they don't ever say that to me, man?
Again, I used to.
They don't even say good morning.
You got different levels of the
But see,
85.
ignoring you completely is the way that they deal with their 85ness. That's their 85ness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They keep to their own and that. Look,
Yeah, they crazy.
I've lived in neighborhoods, all the Mexican community, they don't say nothing to nobody.
Uh-huh.
I've lived next door to Mexicans that have 1,000 people in there, it feels like. It's quiet as hell. When I was young, me and my brother, we made mad noise, doing all types of shit. It's just two of us. And we look next door and it's like, one dude coming out, a bicycle coming out, something else coming out.
Right.
There's babies in there, they don't hear anything. Did they soundproof the walls? What are they doing? Like, is this real covert?
Right.
Whereas, you know, like, again, we're getting to second generation Dominicans, all that kind of stuff. So they're acting like us and being as rebellious as us, and they don't know that a lot of this stuff comes from us, though. I've been in Dominican independence movement, like Dominican freedom fighting movements or conscious movements. Now I know 85, like Savage, where they have literally reinvented the wheel. And they have no idea about the history of Puerto Rican independence movements or independence movements here. So they'll say stuff and they're like, man, you guys are reinventing the wheel. You know what I'm saying? They have no idea what the gods did in the community. They have no idea what the Black Panthers did. They don't know nothing. So everything they say sounds ignorant because, like, yo, we've been there, done that. Like,
Right. Disconnected.
what are you talking about? So it's a lower level. So, like, everybody is impaired on all levels of intelligence when it comes to being 85. You know what I mean? All levels. And it's just something that we have to deal with, though. You know, we have to deal with that. And it's on all levels. Like, you get a lot of our people, they become educated, right? Now they're educated. So we have an educated class of young youth. But they weren't like the way, let's say, I got educated in college, where I was getting a mix of college and the street knowledge of knowledge itself. I was at the same time. You know, I got knowledge of while I was in college, so I'm getting both at the same time. They're getting none of that, so now they have all these predetermined words, languages, you know, all that kind of stuff, and sociological terminology that's totally incorrect, but suitable for their freedom fighting that is really based on, you know, like and dislike amplified. You know, like, I feel like I'm being oppressed here. You know what I mean? I feel like you don't appreciate, you know, like, everything's feelings, because they don't really have knowledge of self. You know? So if you notice, like, the best terms they've ever come with is always about feelings, like, what was it? Yeah, I don't like these microaggressions I receive. Like, we always knew about that. But we never spent the time to deal with the feelings and deal with, like, describing them shit. You're like, no, it's the devil doing shit, underhanded shit.
Right.
But they have words for it because that's what they spend time doing. They don't have knowledge of self, so they acknowledge the environment that they're dealing with on a more profound level. So they're like, they describe microaggressions and shit. Like, these are sociological terms that they come in with now. That they spend time to come with this because they don't have a knowledge of self. So they didn't spend time to figure out who am I. You know what I'm saying? And now that's where you get the Afro-Latino movements and all that, and it's all based on phenotype. So now, an Afro-Latino is still the same thing, doing the same ignorance as the African-American, because they're going like, okay, he looks like what I think African American would look like, you know. But then
Right.
when they're looking like Steph Curry, they're like, ah, damn, I don't know if you belong in this shit.
Twisted.
You know, if they look like me and I'm dealing with a whole black culture my whole life, doing everything, they're like, I don't know. In the summer, Sunez is dark.
Hold on.
In the winter, Sunez is all light in the skin, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So the thing about it though is that you always got to keep grounded and see those perspectives that are leading to where people become 85 in that way. How they become uncivilized. Because remember, our duty is to teach the children. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So your duty is really to teach the children how to interact properly in all this. Because what would be the worst thing though is that they know that they are also original people, but they just never really learn how to treat them like original people because they only deal with the reactions of what they're dealing with. And what will happen though is that they'll also embed themselves with that. See, if you treat the 85 and react to his 85 ways, you're also gonna have to embed yourself with some of his reasoning. So if you get so mad that he treats light skin this way, that way, then you're also gonna have to admit though that certain people's being treated a certain way. So now when you encounter other light-skinned individuals, when you encounter other Latinos, then you're gonna have to assume that they ain't about shit immediately. And really, as God, your palette should be more universal.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You should be worrying about the whole palette though. You should be thinking to yourself, how does this brother that looks just like me deal with me?
Well,
You know what I'm saying? Right? Peace, God.
God. So you all, that's you. In the back, when you get a chance.
All right, I'll do the announcements. And so you should be doing the knowledge to how all the different 85 deal with you. But I'm saying this, your children and everyone else, they need to know the culture and the real deep culture and history of the people that are around you. Because what a lesson would be to say, look at these guys are Puerto Rican, and look how they don't know Puerto Rico. I'll give you an example. If they're Puerto Rican, do they rock the flag? They rock the Puerto Rican flag? Right? Have you met Puerto Ricans that don't rock this shit all day? Most Puerto Ricans don't know that flag was made in New York City to link themselves with Cuba as a linkage of independence, freedom fighting. Because they knew that the U.S. taking over Puerto Rico was just another negative aspect. They knew it was no good.
That's the divide of the
So a
culture.
lot of people don't know that.
That's the divide of the culture.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know that.
Mm.
That's why the Cuban and Puerto Rican flags are just reverse colors. Because the Puerto Ricans that made the flag at that time were trying to link up with that freedom fighting movement. You see? So if you don't know these kind of things, and Puerto Ricans have no idea about this stuff.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know.
Just on the strength of how they act.
If you ever look at I'll give you another fun fact. You ever look at the Puerto Rican flag, right? And some of the blue on it looks navy blue. And then other flags, you think that they're old because they look like sky blue.
Yeah.
Like real sky blue.
Right.
Those are actually two different flags.
Wow.
When the U.S. conquered, they took away the flag and they changed the flag after a while and they made it the darker flag. Because the sky blue flag was associated with freedom for Puerto Rico. So it's a way of saying like, this is the Commonwealth flag and we'll let you fly that one, fly that one. For all of us, so like if a Puerto Rican meets another Puerto Rican, they don't know that, so I don't look at them like, oh, you got the fake flag. Like, I have some deer with the other, but if I can, if I rock patches or whatever, they got the lights.
That's El Signs though, man. I didn't really
Yeah,
know.
no, I was fighting and I've been marching, all that kind of stuff for the freedom, independence for Puerto Rico since I was in college. And I didn't learn that until I was like in my 30s. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of stuff that you don't know. I didn't learn about Pedro Bizu Campos, who was basically our Malcolm X, right? But whose speeches were even more incendiary than Malcolm X. So he was calling for like, yo, they shot one of us. We need to go shoot one of them ASAP. You know what I mean? Even Malcolm didn't say it. Malcolm said the battle of the he said, nah, we just dealing with bullets here. And even if you don't know Spanish and you just listen to his speeches, he's yelling through the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, you got the.
So the thing about it was, I didn't learn about Pedro Bizu Campos until this brother named Sedi Colon had opened a bookstore down the block from me in Sunset.
I know about him.
I went in there And I saw brothers talking about it. I said, yo, who's Pedro Ruiz-Campos? And I saw another Puerto Rican in there. And he started talking about Pedro Ruiz-Campos and how they radiated him because they locked him up and they radiated him. They tested radiation on him.
Wow.
And so he slowly deteriorated to his death. And they showed you could find pictures of him deteriorating, right? And this Puerto Rican guy was talking about him, and he was crying, like that love for him was like he was just crying.
Admiration.
And I was like, yo, how are we crying about this man? Who is this guy? You know what I'm saying? Face God. Who is this man? You know what I'm saying? That he's crying about. And I started to do my research.
Joaquin said peace.
Who?
Joaquin.
Oh, peace God.
Yeah.
Right? And I started to research that man, and I saw the link, but I didn't know anything about that. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that there's a whole history. You know what I mean? There's a whole history. Just like Dominicans don't know that they've been freedom fighting along with Haitians for a long time. That's why the U.S. invaded DDR 3 times in the 20th century. You know what I mean? And you didn't see a lot of Dominicans because they weren't allowed to come to the U.S. until the 60s. Whereas the Puerto Ricans were made citizens in 1917, right? So I'm saying, if you don't know Haitian culture, if you don't know Jamaican culture, if you don't know the culture of the people around you, then you never can understand how it got lost or what really got lost. You know what I'm saying? And then how they adapt certain things badly. Why are they adapting a pop version of the worst parts of our music, and then they act like it has no connection? Because that's what they was told. When you buy or you get sold a reggaeton record, or you get sold a Spanish trap record, they don't tell you like, yo, this isn't the canon of hip hop. They don't say that shit. They tell you, yo, this is our music. We made this. So they're like, yo, that's mine. That's your bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And then now everybody's making bullshit together. And everybody's ignorant of themselves too. So all of this counts in the way you do with 85. So how would you teach your children like, yo, these are the Dominicans here, this is what their culture's coming from, all that kind of stuff. They do merengue and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You would think, right, that a music like merengue, which the main driving force is a tambora, which is a sideways drum. You hit one with the hand and you hit the other with stick. Hand, stick. That is the most African thing you could do, right? Hand and a stick. It looks crazy African, you know what I mean? Dum, 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 right? And this at light speed for 2 years, right? That same music was appropriated by Trujillo, and he said, you guys can only make songs about me. And so the music that doesn't sound as black, which still has bongos, but it's mainly driven by the broken arpeggios of the guitars, the bachata, that's considered the more lowly music, whereas merengue was considered proper music, you know what I mean? So these are contradictions, hypocrisies, oddities that you find in different original people's cultures. You know, just like I said, you go into Jamaica, you think, yo, all of them are going to be righteous, all right? Rastaman vibe. Then you see, you're like, wait a minute. They conking their hair, they processing, they doing all types of stuff to get away from the culture. They hate that. The black card man is actually a slur. All this kind of stuff. You're like, damn, y'all don't love Rasta? Like, I one time went to a Jamaican sister, I was like, y'all don't love Rasta like that?
Bushman.
Yeah.
They call him Bushman.
What's the matter with you? Because I'm like, yo, to me, roots reggae is like legend, right? You gotta have it. Like, and I'm like, yo, you're a Jamaican and you have no roots music in your collection? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So the thing is like that. But look, we go to other African Americans, like, and I won't put it to you, but like, how many African Americans have heard at least one classic work from Dizzy Gillespie, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk? You know what I'm saying? We're not as cultured as we think. And you have to look at the knowledge of self as just one beginning point. The fact that we're not cultured always means that we don't really have great understanding of what happened to us. And the reason that we're so inclined to learn about each other, or we judge each other through the music we listen to, then we have to see what music was lost and what things were lost. You know? And a lot of things are lost via the music, you know what I mean? And because obviously my career is through the music, I'm very much, I judge people by the music they listen to, you know? So when somebody doesn't like a song I like, I judge them completely. You know?
So he is a hater of good music.
Yeah. The quote of 2000. Which is gonna be the quote of 2000. But wait, we have to say it like a documentary. As soon as known to be a hater.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
That's like a dark.
I love Infinite, but that's so funny.
Yeah.
You know? But the 85 is something you gotta study, you know? Like I remember one time I was in teaching in the classroom and you know I had a student say, oh, I hate the fucking 85, we the 5 and why's Jamel? He came in, you know, he just busted in, you know, he busted in. We had the doors in the back. He busted in. Who's saying that they hate the 85? You know what I'm saying? I love the 85. The 85 is who we teach. Those are man, woman, and child. That's us. You know what I'm saying? We got love. You know, the only difference between us and them is because we know something, though. We got lucky because the Father told us we love. You know what I mean? We happened to take the path of learning as much as we could, and it led us to getting this knowledge itself. But I've been around a lot of people that they've learned a lot of things, and they happen to have not encountered this. And it surprises me, actually. I'm like, yo, you went through all of these intellectual ciphers, street ciphers too, all that, and you didn't encounter this shit? It says something about what he was paying attention to, maybe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it also says, like, you don't always get this. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at the 85, I don't want you to look at them now like with some pity, like, get banned out. You even say the Spanish.
I
Get
still
banned
look
out.
at them with a fire torch.
But what I'm saying is, like,
Watch it.
you gotta look at them and like, yo, they don't have this knowledge. But lacking a knowledge itself doesn't just mean that they don't know the original man is God. It also means that they don't even know the cultures of struggle that they are coming from too. The people that have tried to struggle for things in their own societies, they don't know that either. You know, like our people from different countries, they don't even know the struggle that their own people went through to get free in their own countries. You know, and they have wild assumptions about it, you know. The Dominicans and Puerto Ricans are the most extreme, odd examples, you know, because where do you find like a country ruled by Spain and then the U.S. for a mass amount of time, you know? That also leads to great psychosis too, because it's a confusion. You will never be free, but you will always be ruled by someone else. Someone's going to rule you, you know? These lead to problems. What about Latin America, where in Latin America, the entire population advertises, they promote indigenous culture. That's their calling card. That's how you go there. You go visit the world. You go, let me get a poncho, you know, let me get a poncho, just, right? All that kind of shit. But those are the same cultures. In Guatemala, they do that. But Guatemala has been known to genocide whole indigenous tribes and the outskirts. And the people that live there live with those contradictions. And now they live with a person like, okay, I embrace my indigenous roots, but I definitely ain't no damn indigenous. You know what I mean? So you gotta appreciate somebody like a Che Guevara who is taught that. Who's absolutely taught, like, yo, you ain't this, you ain't that, you're a white Hispanic. And he goes down, takes a whole trip through Latin America to see the shit himself, and becomes radicalized and realizes he's indigenous. And they're all levels of indigenous. You see what I'm saying? But the reason I mentioned Che is because how rare is that example? Half the people that will try to travel through Latin America the way he did, they get killed on the way. You know, that's just not, you don't just travel, you just say, yeah, I'm gonna take a bike through Latin America. You know what I'm saying? You're not a gentrifier, you get killed, where you go? Country like that, you know what I mean? So it's all these different things. Every time, like, it's no universal Latino thing either, because I'll meet and have to teach original people from different countries, and they have totally different situations. You know what I mean? And it's always different. You know what I mean? Right? I'm looking at the crown. There's a fucking
When you look at Latin cultures, especially
whole
Puerto
situation
Rico,
there, right?
this is what Puerto Rico looks like. It goes white as this, as light as us, as dark as it makes, and then Chinese that will throw you off.
All in the, it could be all the same house.
The same.
Right,
So
yeah.
that's the grandfather, that's his brother, we the kids, and then you got the Chinese wife, whatever. Puerto Rico is like that. Now what happens
Everybody
is
got
that,
a cousin they call Chino, because he has Chinese eyes. You know what I mean?
and they all
Yeah.
Puerto Rican, right? Now, you coming in, and the stigma is, now look as dark as it makes, he's Puerto Rican, right? He may even be accepted if he's Cuban or whatever. Because he's of that Latin culture, he's accepted. You're coming in from the African American culture, which is looked at from this side as negative. because of what is being viewed by this culture. So what do you see? Like you see a lot of the media portrays black Americans like this. The media portrays black Americans like that. If you don't associate with black Americans, then that's all you see. So now you coming in to date my daughter, you coming in my store, you coming, all I'm seeing is these negative images that's constantly, perpetrated all day long. So yeah, I don't want your business. Yeah, we got your wallet, you got caught slipping. Yeah, guess what? Anytime we want to take an opportunity to take advantage, we are.
That's right.
But the thing is, that's any culture. So now what happens is, go in there and speak fluent Spanish. Oh, that's
Hell yeah.
But
Hell yeah,
because,
they like that.
because you understand the culture and they think they know you. They think you of the culture. You're not of the culture. You understand? The culture is one thing. Complexion is something else.
I'm just in the culture.
You just now know how you gonna get into the culture is two ways.
You know what's interesting? If you had remembered, if they're Dominican especially, if you remembered your first time going to a Dominican place, right? Don't say anything. And they will not treat you that way. They want to see if you actually are Dominican. Then they might do, be a certain way.
No, that's funny. When I went to
But
Dominican Republic, they automatically assumed that I was Haitian.
Because you
Right.
across the street.
Right. And then when I started speaking, it was like, oh, okay. Like they gave me a certain kind of respect, but because the Haitian get another level of disrespect. Like they don't.
Wow.
They
You
don't.
think of
yeah.
African Americans, it's a Haitian, it's more.
Yeah.
They don't say African Americans are cannibalists, but they do say that about Haitians.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying they in general. I'm saying they were literally taught this.
Taught that, yeah.
Like they went to school and were taught this. So like you could see like actual papers written about the degradation of Haitian, society, So all this kind of stuff. Just like you have racist literature from whites about blacks in America, you have the same thing. Like this is what they were taught, and that's how they achieved their national identity, which is horrible. In the generations that come up, it's always the best part is the babies. Because the generation that's coming up, young Dominicans, they're starting to realize, you guys taught me some bullshit. You guys told me some bullshit and this isn't the truth. You know what I mean? And now they're getting more comfortable with their African features. They're more comfortable with their African history. And they're learning about their own independence movements, which they know now hasn't really been achieved as ideally as they think. Because some of the biggest multinational corporations are in Dominican Republic.
It's funny you said. I went to a party last
Nah,
Friday.
Divine, it's not on every day.
My buddy's wife was throwing a party, and
Thursdays
I walked
at
to the party
7
and
p.m.
immediately hit the dance floor. Immediately, I don't speak Spanish. You know what I mean? Not fluent as I should, but I don't speak. So immediately hit the dance floor. I can dance, remember? So then, when they start speaking, I said, "No, you're soy moreno." Right? So they're like, "Oh, but you look like," and I know I have that look. I'm looking around, I blend in so well. So now some of my other parties come in there, and about the original walks in the party. Everybody look, and they're like, "Who you with?" "Oh, I'm with Julio, man." "Oh, all right. And then they point them to the but the whole part is that in any culture, I could go to Europe and walk into a culture. It's how you conduct yourself. Is what the culture's gonna look at. Yeah, you could be the black guy in the room, you could be the white guy in the room. They're gonna look at how you conduct your ways and wisdom, right? Your ways of action is what's gonna be looked at. And then they're gonna look at how do you speak?
I think too, God, is the quality of the culture of a people. Because in the 70s, salsa musicians and those ciphers, they often had some of the best dancers were known to be African American and Jewish. And that's because the culture was so
The dance is very similar.
Yeah, but the cultures were so complex and it was so rooted in actual skill levels that it could embrace people coming and showing skill and offering themselves. When you go into a culture now, like let's say you go into a club, and it could be a Dominican club and stuff, what is there to offer to ingratiate yourself within the culture? There is nothing. You're not going to go in there and rhyme anybody. No one rhymes.
I don't always be here
No
on
one can
Thursdays.
rhyme.
So you
You're
have
not
a
gonna
class
out
every
musician
Thursdays.
Right.
But I'm not always here every
Musicality is not
Thursdays. Come to
part
the
of the
class. It's not a
You know what I'm
really
saying?
online
All you
thing,
do
man.
is
You know,
outball people,
this is a family culture.
outrich them,
Come
out-home
amongst the family and build. Peace.
out-thug them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Flash.
So there's really no culture that you can embed yourself into, and it filters on into the way that people live in their own domestic situations. You see? And that's why like the music of a people counts so, you know what I mean? It tells you everything that where they're on, you what I'm saying? Just like if you walk into a train and you see a sister and she's reading As a Man Pinkett,
Okay.
you better step up. You know what I'm saying? If you're single, you know. But at the same time, if you see a brother and he's playing something really dope, you're like, ah man, you playing that real shit. Yeah, that's what's up.
Peace out,
You know what I
Dan.
mean? If they're playing something really dope
Peace.
that takes to appreciate,
Need a bell with you,
you
God.
gotta have a good ear. You're like, oh, you know about this, you know, like that's dope. That's how culture ingratiates you and how you get embedded into people's culture. Now we're dealing with 85 that don't really have that kind of culture. You know, what are you gonna do? Twerk yourself into a living room?
Now with my mama.
You know what I'm saying? Hey neighbor, you know? So there's nothing to really, you know, like to say like, yo, your music is saying nothing, mine is saying nothing, what the fuck are we, you know what I mean? So it really doesn't have that impact, you know? And that's a big problem as well. We don't have like a common, we don't have cultural cues of intelligence or insight that we're sharing in anything that we're doing. And that impairs the way we deal with the 85. Because now if he's playing music loud, let's say if my neighbor was playing Public Enemy and blasting it, I'd still have kids that's going
Peace,
to school,
Shafar.
right? I'm like-
Peace.
and I'd be
Peace
knocking
out,
on the door
man.
saying,
Yeah,
yo,
we definitely, bro.
when you playing that real shit,
Yeah.
salute. But
Will
you know,
I
the kids
accept
got
it?
yeah, and
Will
they
I
might,
accept it?
but they might get it because if they listen to Chuck D, there's already a level of humanity to what they're dealing with.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
Chuck D himself would lower the volume.
Exactly.
Because the baby's gotta go to school
You
tomorrow.
know what I'm saying? The
And
baby's gotta go to school.
That's what I do all day.
Exactly.
Right?
You know the kids gotta go to school tomorrow.
Right.
And that's the reason a lot of people are like, and you look, I'm like, tomorrow Friday, Saturday, I don't care. Friday they got one more day of school. And they're like, all right, maybe gotta go to school tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Wait till Friday, Saturday. Yeah.
Friday, listen, you just be upset.
Yeah, but you know, it's hard to deal with people when there's nothing that you know is vibing with the culture, like nothing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's nothing that bonds you. So we're always dealing with some conflict that way.
But the music bonds as well. Like if you go to a party, certain parties, when certain music comes on, you know I gotta grab a lady and dance.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? So now, if it's merengue, suave merengue might be always all of the that might as well be the line dancing before, right after you do the bus stop, suave merengue might come on. Then you might hit
I'm
some
so fucking
reggae.
sick of that.
Because that's what everybody knows, right? So that's something that, and
Which is a merengue made by Puerto Rican.
I thought he was Mexican. The way he looks.
He looks
right?
like, yeah, but it's Puerto Rican.
But it's the cult. So if I'm throwing a party, all my friends, I gotta make sure the West Indians get their little soca jam in there. They get a little, there's some hip hop, there's some dance, there's some old school. So now the cultures that everybody's getting hit.
Yeah.
But now the majority of the party, if the majority of the party is happens to be Mexican, you're gonna have a heavy bachata flow. It's gonna be a heavy Latin, and then it might come in as people come around.
Yeah.
But if it's black, it might be.
And I don't know, you got it. That's the easiest thing to dance to me.
What bachata?
Ex bachata, you know.
Because it's a two-step.
Yeah, it's just 1, 2, 3.
I hear it, but then when you put the salsa on and the salsieros come out, that's when you start. Now a salsero will battle with if I take you to the west, it ain't nothing but stepping with a little bit more speed. You know what I mean? So a lot of the cultures, when you look at the cultures, especially
A lot of
people,
similarity, yeah.
like
That's a good description.
and when you look at original people, how the difference between how the Latin American cooks and the ones from the West Indies, it's just the spice. It's the same shit. It's the same rice. It's the same peas. It's the same chicken. It's just you add curry here. You add a little bit of this here. It's the same. And I got a West Indian wife, right? So it's rice and peas when I, right? And then it's rice and beans,
Rice and
right?
beans.
And then it's arroz con pollo when I go to my mom. So
Yeah.
but it's the same thing.
It is our responsibility, though, to deal with these culture clashes. If you think your culture clash is something, what about LA, though, where the gods is out there and Mexicans and blacks are so divided that they can't even walk down the same streets together? So we have, and you know what's interesting is that just like Puerto Ricans and blacks, the struggle for independence is very linked together between Mexicans and blacks, you know what I mean? And very similar. You know, the freedom fighting movements of both are very near the same, you know? But again, there's a Mexican child, teenager, that has those anti-black feelings. Does he even know about his heritage? Not talking about blacks. Does he even know that he has a freedom fighting heritage? You know? He might even see himself as a victim because they just took half of his land, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if he even knows anything, that might be the first thing he learns. You know, so they don't learn all these things. You know what I mean?
And how blacks got to Mexico. Some of them ran to Mexico. You know what I mean? You start seeing where these black Mexicans come from. Because you start with when you. I think that's the whole thing I like about this, the investigation, right? You can look at any time period, any year in this just America, and just look how the people dealt with conflict and whatever it is. Say you take both the Declaration of Independence, right? You can look at take the Cherokee. They sided with the British and lost. So now it was like, oh yeah, we about to house they shit. We're gonna take England first. This is stuff we're gonna give to people. But then a lot of Cherokees assimilated. They had black slaves. They had westernized culture. But now you lost. So we're about to take you, move you to the side. You start looking at that's just one culture. Then you got the ones that look like more African than Indian anymore, or Native than anymore. And you got the similar. You start looking around how everything started mixing in, and it ends up going back to that original color. You know what I mean? But it's just a conflict. The culture that you're looking at, the things that, just the simple stuff like, how does a man provide? Like when Sunez does if you go back in the days, what did they wear? Right? And you remember dashiki this, dashiki that, and I go,
The only wear in
just dashiki, right?
ancient dynasties in Egypt, they only have one shirt. You know?
But then how do you celebrate the birth of a child? How do you celebrate a marriage? How do you celebrate these things? What music are they playing? What are they cooking? The things that you would see now is always then, what does it happen now? If you came to my house and I say you married one of my sisters or something like that, we're gonna be looking at you like, not on some yo, he black, can you provide?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because now the whole culture, you could be white, come to the house. Can you provide if y'all have kids? Can you keep my woman safe? Now we're gonna give you the ultimate grill if you white. I'm tell you that right now. It is what it is. But the understanding is, whatever she likes, she's in love with this guy for whatever reason.
Right.
But can he maintain that household? Now, when he maintains a household, what is going to be taught in the household? What are they going to be fed in the household? What kind of music is going to be? Because you go to the other side, where we're the 7, go to those sticks, where they burn the crosses, the 8 is their number. When you go into that skinhead culture, you go into those cultures, the 8 is their number. They got their signs.
Wow.
We have original, they have theirs. You know what I mean? So when you start looking at that stuff, this culture forces you to investigate almost everything. And you get lost. You're like, where was we at again? You know what I mean? It all came off of, because now, music, we said music is the purpose. Slavery, the whole singing was, when you was picking cotton, the singing was, yo, we finna run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It had the message.
Codes, yeah.
It had the codes, right? They're like, damn, okay, this thing's so good. And they have no idea we're not gonna be here in the morning.
That's what they say about capybara too. That was a form of hiding their practice of hiding their training.
And
They made it like dancing, yeah. But they was really training.
So a lot of times it's that when you educate, think about hip hop was attracted to. That's why you said God made race supreme in hip hop, because look at what it sparked. It forced people to go back into their culture because a certain movement was lost, right? So now it's like, where did you get that from? Oh, you got to go to 126th Street, 7th Avenue, get a lesson real quick, and then
I said that too. I was like, yo man, the guards had and still have a major influence in hip hop, man.
Absolutely.
Still.
Absolutely.
Word, like it's crazy.
That's a fact.
Like
Every
now hip hop wasn't hip hop without.
every conscious MC that I know,
Yeah.
they know about this.
Came from the
Yeah, of course, if I know them, they know more.
Well, you don't do some music in my
I
hand.
know more.
But it's the cultural thing is that, really, the whole thing that you started off with, yo, I feel a certain way when I go around. A lot of it might not just be what you feel, if you don't know what their history is like. You know what I mean? You don't know what they have encountered in their neighborhood, in their stores, and this and then here you come saying Primo, they're like, he about to rob this place. I don't give it. Last dude was Primo, then we got robbed. So you might not know that. You know what I mean? So a lot of times everything falls under examination. They may watch you for a while. You know what I mean? They may watch you for a while, and then so you know when you in when they offer you food. In any culture, you know you in. I don't care what it is. When they say you hungry, and you might not eat pork, but when they say you hungry, they let you. They're trying to show some type of appreciation.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So now once they offer you food, you in. Because now it's like, dude, you would never invite someone. That's an inviting thing.
Yeah.
Like, do you want something to eat? We're having a party. So somebody like, it's not a birthday party. You want to come? Boom. And they're inviting you to have fellowship, to enjoy the culture. You might not know how to dance merengue, salsa, whatever, but you're going to see a finest woman you ever seen in your life is
Now,
still
I learned today.
and you're gonna learn. Yeah, I'm
Learn
learning.
today.
I was proud of the salsa.
Yeah.
My father told my mother, he's like, I'm gonna learn this shit.
That's right.
And then whatever she dances, I'm gonna dance that tomorrow. And you see it because now.
They got some beautiful women, man. Word.
But what culture don't? You know what I mean? What culture don't have that you put a certain music on a certain dance makes you hit that floor.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what makes the women in different cultures that more beautiful, because when they live their culture, you're like, damn, so that shit man different from my black sister, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I like that. How she wear her whatever colors they got, any, you know what I mean, or whatever garbs they wear. Like, I be around Mexicans, like during the morning time, and they got their own little style. They got their own little swag. They got their own little. It's not black. It's not Latin. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but they got their own little.
Well, if you look at the roots of it is black though. If you look at and really examine and study it, the roots of it, you know, it is black. I mean, you have Spaniard in it. You have some, you know, American
I
in
see
it.
it more like they're more like Indians.
Yeah, you got that. I mean,
That's
that's
what I'm saying.
black. That's
Black,
as well as black.
exactly.
Yeah, but
So
but you
when
have
say
that too. Yeah.
Because I see them
Because
like
it's very indigenous.
Very
the customs,
indigenous.
Yeah, it's more, you know, homegrown. You know what I'm saying? I see Latins as Indians too, but you don't see it in their customs as much as you see with the Mexicans. The Mexicans are like the Mexicans in the book. You know how like you open the book, they have the big on their back. That's how they be looking. Like
You painting the
in this day and time,
hallway.
I'm like, oh shit.
Nah, I'm just going to the kitchen.
You know?
Yeah.
Or
But if you see the black skins, that's what you look like.
Just to the kitchen.
Huh?
I say.
Go to West Coast. The black skins look like they're
You
faking
plan on
you.
doing the rest of school?
You know what I mean? The black
You plan on doing the rest of school?
The black skins,
Like,
that's a
actually,
whole
you plan on doing the
other.
rest of it.
I never heard that before until I went to the West
Time
Coast.
fit, I
Black
bet
shit.
do something
That-
with it and come back.
different,
Yeah.
man.
Or Blackanese. You get Chinese black.
Something.
Blackanese.
Chinese people.
A little bit at a
This
time.
is
I
all
don't take
the
no
time,
big
man.
too, so I do something over there, do something over here.
It's
Same
either
place.
you invite or you're not
Right.
invited. And sometimes you're gonna have opposition. You know what I mean? You're gonna have opposition because you may, whatever your lady say, you bring that and say, yo, I got this dress for you. She like, this is not for the $7 rack. You ain't impressing nobody. Or she might say that's cute. You know what I mean? So a lot of times is that, yo, I like that. Say your woman, she look like that Mexican girl, and then now you got senorita in your house. You know what I mean?
I know, like, yeah, like some of them, man. Some of them is.
Women know how to
But I
spice
see
things
one
up.
thing about them that I'm never like. They don't talk a lot. They won't sit down and have and carry no conversation with you. I tell you
Trying to
that.
finish.
Try to finish the shit.
I
Depends on who you
Yeah, exactly. So
I've never.
When I dated Latinos, man, who talk.
No, not Latins. Mexicans.
Mexicans specifically,
Mexicans specifically.
I haven't dated Mexican. I did El Salvadorian and Honduran, similar. So
I've never.
when you go to
really
West
had a
Cost,
conversation.
you go to West Coast, man, I've been to quinceañeras that will rival any Puerto Rican party, Dominican party on the East Coast.
Colombian.
You know what I mean? But it's a festival.
Colombian,
It's a festival. Just how we party, everybody party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every culture parties, every culture is gonna celebrate whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's just New York. Even though the city don't sleep at a certain time, it's time to shut it down.
Another thing I learned about them, the Mexican people, is that they're very routine. Like once there's a root, they stick to it until you cut it off. If you don't cut it off, they're gonna find each. Like for instance, I'll be on in Brooklyn sometime. They have a train station called Decal, right? Like you've seen literally the people would hide in the steps, right? They used to run down the steps to the door and go through the door and turn it. But they started doing it so much that you started seeing the trail coming from the steps, and all this is concrete. You started seeing like they ran it in, you know what I'm saying? And after they stopped, then it started going away. But they're very routine, regardless. Every day, they did it at the same time, the same way.
About to wrap
One
this
person
up.
come down, do.
True Born.
True
True Born Monologue, my brother.
I don't knock it, but
Yeah.
I've seen that they're very routine.
About to wrap this up in a
and
minute.
They're very, like, well, these are our people, man.
See what, you know what else
Like,
is
we're
in
gonna
there.
show our people. We don't care if you don't like it.
We're united.
Exactly. That's one thing about Mexicans, man. And I haven't really seen that in no other.
Freedom of law
You know,
page.
Even with the Latins. You
Which freedom is
they
that?
See, dissatisfaction at times amongst all of them. But Mexicans, you already see it. You already see it.
I mean, you're gonna see that in any culture.
Peace. Hey, Allah.
There's gonna be
Peace.
things where we like have like interests. There's gonna be some things that we don't have interest in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You may be united in a life of crime, and I'm not in that. And now we got, you know, we're gonna clash and there's a conflict, right? So, but it could be, you know, in all cultures you're gonna see that. You're gonna start
T-Big, free, yeah, free. Peace, God.
people are people. When you start looking at it, people are people.
Yeah, we
don't
got the
call-
gods in
don't
here
call
tuning
them
in.
what they
Peace to
look
the
like.
gods, peace to the
If you
gods,
call
peace to
them
the
what they
earth,
look
so
like,
earth's
that's
in
like
there.
a curve you gotta watch
It's
out.
all
See
one.
how the earth
Exactly.
really.
At the end of the day, it's all one thing.
Earth is quiet in the background.
That's what it is.
People are people. You know what I mean? And when you start looking at it, the characteristics of people. Think about it, everything that you're talking about is really a characteristic of someone who is taking advantage of
With
others.
that,
Or someone who is
I'ma
not
say-
showing affection to another.
peace.
Who's not being humane.
Well, but a lot of it is that if I go into